Hello and welcome, Laura, to The Root of Our Health. I am so happy that you were on this podcast. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you so much, Elizabeth. Thanks for having me. I'm so glad to be here.
Great, great. So I always start my episodes with a rapid fire question. These are 5 questions for my audience just to get to know you a little bit better. It's kind of start it with a fun, easy way. So how does that sound?
That sounds great. I'm ready. I'm ready
Awesome.
for it.
Okay. Yay. So where did you grow up?
I grew up in Houston, Texas. Well, really, I guess properly Katy, Texas, but right on the border of Houston. So kind of toggling between those two areas. Yeah.
Got it. Got it. And
Yeah.
now where do you live?
Currently, I live in Charlottesville, Virginia. So it's about 2.5 hours south of DC and about an hour and a half west of Richmond,
Nice.
Virginia. Yeah.
Nice. And who are your 2 top mentors?
Oh, 2 top mentors. Oh gosh, that is a challenging question. Well, one of my longtime mentors, her name's Debbie Prum. She's an author and she's been a mentor and a friend that I've had for about 13 years. And so I'm deeply inspired by her, and she holds a lot of really beautiful space for me to process things. And I love her. And then oh my gosh, I don't even know. I have so many other mentors that it's hard to pick one.
Well, you can, I mean, 1, 2 doesn't matter, if you want to keep it with that, that's cool.
Yeah, I have another good friend in California who has held a lot of space for me and helped me process things. And her name's Susan Cunningham. She's amazing. I have a good friend in Minnesota, and she's a nurse, and just she's a beautiful person to process. So I just like my other friend Emily. I mean, I have so many people that really I feel like help mentor and process things with me. So yeah,
That's beautiful. That's
yeah.
that's a great feeling to have, these people, these support groups around you,
Yeah.
that's awesome.
It's, somewhere in my 20s, I realized that I just I needed people who could both be playful and also really be deep, and people whose stories I knew and people who knew my story. And so we could have generous reflection, like mutual reflection for each other. And so I just tried to go about finding those people, which is not always easy to do, but I feel like I have a good group now. So it's good. Yeah.
Well, it seems as though I know these are rapid fire and I'm kind of getting off on a tangent.
Yeah,
but
sorry,
it's okay. It's my
tangented.
show. I can do what I want.
You can. Yes, you can.
But no, I was just saying, it seems as though your aura, kind of attracts these certain types of people. Don't you think? Like that's what you give off. And so I believe that's how you attract certain people, is what you give off. And that's why you attract so many wonderful, individuals, whether they're men or women in your life. So am I wrong or am I right? I don't
No,
know.
I have to take that in as a very kind compliment and receive that. And so that's what I'm working on doing. I think sometimes compliments are hard to take as people. It's like we kind of want to deflect, But yeah, I think I hope that that's true. And and I feel like I'm continuing to try to cultivate and work on myself, and continue to to have integrity with myself, which is also to be integrated with myself. And so I seek out people who are kind of working on that too. Cause I don't know if we ever get there. Like, it's like we never arrive, but I love the process of being in the process with people. So
nice.
I think it's really fun. Yeah.
Awesome.
So yeah.
All right. So next question is, what are you most passionate about?
Oh, I love stories. I love stories. I love sitting with other people's stories. I love telling a good story. I love hearing a good story. I love the mystery of stories and teasing them out and understanding more of the humanness within a particular story. So I'm deeply passionate about stories, and I think that connects with, I just have such a deep passion to be with people and to work with people to understand more of their story and also to step into the power of creating the story they want for themselves.
Mm.
And so I would say both the work that I do as a coach and also as a musician kind of matches with that passion, I think, hopefully.
Yeah. Oh, it does.
Yeah.
So then last but not least, what is your superpower?
Oh my gosh, what is my superpower? Rah. You know what? I'm relentless. I am a relentless person. And I mean that in a, sometimes you can hear relentless and it's kind of feels like a dog with a bone. But what I mean to say is that I persevere. Like I have a strong sense of perseverance. And so I just don't quit. Like I don't quit. And so I go for it until I am able to get onto the other side of it. And I believe it's possible to get to the other side of things. And so I would say I think that's my superpower is I
Nice.
just keep going. Yeah.
Wear that cape proudly, right?
Yeah, I'm trying. You've asked very questions that require me to speak love over myself. And I think that is something I'm still working on is to be able to bless myself
Okay,
publicly out loud. So
got it.
yeah.
So you're I mean, you don't have to talk about it. You're more like giving of others rather than self-reflecting. Is that what I'm hearing, or is that something that's not correct?
Well, I think that now I'm kind of thinking off the cuff here, but I do think sometimes as women, we can find ourselves in situations where we have to be diminished, like we were constantly diminishing ourselves.
Mhm.
And I see this a lot. You pay a compliment to someone and they're like, oh no, and they'll deflect it. They'll send it to somebody else or they'll make an excuse for why it just happened that way. And so part of the practice that I have set out for myself is to stop doing that, to be like, this is true about me and I can own the beautiful things about myself and I can be proud to claim those as myself. And I hope that invites other people to do the same thing. But it is not easy because we're very much trained to have this it's sort of taught as like being humble or something like that. I don't know, self-deprecation.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to push back against that and be like, well, it's just true. Like, can we tell the truth about both the things we struggle with and the things we're really beautiful and glorious about and hold both of those things.
Right.
So
Right. Well,
yeah.
that's good.
Yeah.
I hear you loud and clear.
It's real, man. It's real.
So I just want to get I like I mentioned before, I listened to a few of your songs and I'd have to say your voice is so mesmerizing and so beautiful.
Thank you.
And I know I'm giving you more compliments, so
No, it's good.
but
I
I
can receive
promise.
that. Thank you. Thank you very much.
But I just want to understand, were you always a songwriter or how did you get started? Like how did you get started in this?
Yeah, so I loved to sing since I was very little. I think it's a deeply human thing because it's very can be very soothing to sing. I think this is part of why we do this and why I practice this in large groups and with ourselves and sing to ourselves in the showers because you have to take a deep breath in and then you have to expel a deep breath out. And so it's like the practice of finding your breath to some degree, just
Mm.
with notes, and also with words. So it's like this beautiful way to speak to yourself in this like roundabout, beautiful way. So I loved doing it when I was young. I just absolutely loved to sing. And then as I came into probably elementary school, I started realizing that I liked to write. I loved to
Mm.
write. I loved words. I loved what they offered in terms of expanding a person's experience of the material world and even their emotional experience. And that you, as a writer, have the power to place someone in a location with feelings, with all of these really cool things. And they're just still right where they are. Like if I was reading a book, I can be somewhere totally different, having this beautiful emotional experience right where I am. I think that's so cool. And so I started doing writing and I studied writing in college, creative writing, with a focus in poetry and short stories. And I was doing music at the same time. I was also a makeup artist, did makeup artistry in college. And for whatever reason, that seemed like a more practical path for me. I couldn't get my head wrapped around being a musician, probably because of how it's portrayed in the media, as being kind of luck driven, or people have a lot of problems with drugs, or or you're a young woman and you're taken advantage of, and which all of those things are, true experiences in the music industry. But I couldn't visualize how I would practically be a musician and doing the kind of music that I wanted to do. So I was writing and I was doing makeup and I was writing songs, but I had a lot of timidity about it. And I was always looking for approval outside of myself. Is this a good song? Is this a good song? And instead of being like, this is a good song, or this is a song, and I can think about it however I want to think about it. And someone else can think about it however they want to think about it. So yeah, so I studied writing and I loved to sing, and I started playing guitar when I was, maybe 14 or 15, but had a lot of fear around playing an instrument. It just didn't make any sense to me. And, in the music industry, there's a lot of stuff. If you Google it, you can find like girls and guitars and like all the shit they say to women about being a guitarist. It's like,
Really?
oh yeah, it's like a whole thing. So, I felt that it was like all the boys had guitars and they were playing music like Creed, I'm aging myself, but it's fine. Creed.
No,
And
I'm right there.
you're right there, right?
Right there, yes.
Yeah. And I got so frustrated because I was like, I don't want to sing Creed. I just don't. So that's why I picked up the guitars, because I was like, I need to have control over the kind of music I want to sing. And I want to be able to accompany myself singing songs like Patty Griffin, who I felt was really amazing. If you don't know her, you should check her out. She's absolutely incredible. Or Joni Mitchell, or Natalie Merchant, like all of these, women that I thought were really inspiring to me. And I wanted to be able to, the Dixie Chicks, now called the Chicks, but at the time they were called the Dixie Chicks, wanted to be able to play Landslide, which I didn't know was by Fleetwood Mac because I was too young to know that. Figured that out later. Ooh, that was a special moment. And I wanted to be able to accompany myself. So I got into guitar. And I don't know if I'm answering your question. This is very long-winded, but
no, keep going. It's just, keep going.
Yeah. So I picked up the guitar. I started playing. I was trying to learn how to play Landslide, which is by Fleetwood Mac, by Stevie Nicks. And my mom told me, she bought me a really cheap guitar, and she said, if you learn how to play this, I'll buy you a proper guitar. So I learned how to play and sing Landslide. And that is, and not well, but I could do it enough to where she realized I was taking it seriously. And so we went out and bought my first guitar. Now, my first guitar was recommended to me by the guy I was dating at the time. And so it really wasn't the guitar I should have purchased, but that was just the head. Yeah. Now I don't do that anymore. So anyway, so I kind of learned how to play guitar and could kind of play for myself, but still wasn't terribly confident about it. And really at the time was pursuing makeup artistry because that was making me actual money. I was working for Laura Mercier at the time and was traveling and doing makeup while I was in college to pay for things. And when I moved to Charlottesville, I met my husband and he was doing photography. And so it was just like this beautifully complementary way that we moved together, was that he was doing photos and I was doing makeup, and it just worked really well. But at the same time, I was still writing and trying to write music and trying to learn about how to write music. And so that process, though, really was just me trying to grow up and realize, like, if you want to be a professional, you have to kind of have a professional mindset. It's not just waiting for the muse to come. It's not just, a random Tuesday you get a song, or like all these things just kind of happen to you. It's being very intentional about your craft and putting work into it. I mean, showing up for the muse. I mean, if you show up every Tuesday and Wednesday at the same time at 10 a.m., the muse is like, all right, she's reliable. Here's the song,
Yeah.
but then you still have to work on it. So it took me a while. I mean, it's taken me a while to get here. And I had 3 kids, while I was doing all that, and we owned a coffee shop. So that's a long, long version. But
No, it's very good. It's like what I hear also is consistency. Like you and what you mentioned before, your perseverance. So you knew what you wanted, and thankfully your mom kind of put that, didn't give it to you. You know what I'm saying? Like she made you kind of work for it, right? Meaning that, are you serious? Yes, I'm serious. I really want it. Great. But yeah, the perseverance and the consistency, I think, is where it's leading you to now, and then probably what's going to lead you to your goals, what you have, moving forward. So that's, yeah, I think that's key in life.
yeah, I do. I think that any dream that you have, or any goal or result that you have for yourself, it's the ability to follow through for yourself, and the ability to fail and to get back up and to allow yourself 1,000 failures on the way. I mean, Bob Dylan said, I have to write 100 songs to get one good one.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so like, will you give yourself permission to try 100 times, and maybe it's 99 before you get the one it's good. So, I mean, that's been helpful. And then I've had to do my own work, my own work on my story to kind of understand, well, where have I come through this like sense of being insecure, and how do I heal my own sense of gaining approval from myself, that I can actually give myself approval. I can actually give myself security. I don't have to look outside of myself for those things. And that has been its own journey. And the more I've pressed into understanding myself and my story and my own trauma, the more I've healed. And so the more I'm able to create without fear, as much fear, to know that like it's going to come, like it just will. If you if you train for a marathon, at the end you will be able to run a marathon. So and then you kind of just have to keep showing up to do the work. So yeah, that's what my mantra is at this particular juncture.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, you kind of touched on it a little bit, about the trauma part. So we do have similar ways of thinking for the mind, body, and heart connection. Um, and I do love how you use your lyrics and your voice to tell a story of healing. I think you call it narrative informed trauma care. So my question is, what is it, and why is it so powerful to tell our story?
Oh, yes. Wow, what a beautiful question. Yeah, I think that, we come to a place, a lot of people come to a place, this has been my experience, where it's usually, maybe in your 20s or your 30s, sometimes 40s, sometimes much later. And you begin to realize that, you know, there's a lot of striving, there's a lot of anxiety, there's a lot of things happening in your body that you can't explain. And for me, I just was tired of living that way. I was tired of being anxious all the time. I was tired of feeling like I didn't understand, why nothing made sense to me. I felt like everything around me, I had cultivated this beautiful life. I had gotten married. He was great, kids, job, all of this stuff. And yet still this like inner turmoil. I'm like, okay, so my circumstances are so well, and yet something in my body is testifying to something else. It's saying not well. And in order to kind of understand that for myself, I had to go back and begin to piece together what was true for me coming through, what was true for me as I was in my childhood, what was the story, and then how had that impacted me, so I could begin to create a new narrative for myself. And so part of the work that I did, it was out at the Allender Center. It's an institute that's a part of the school, the Seattle School of psychology and theology. And so part of their belief in terms of how they practice this work is that you really need a witness. You really need a witness to tell your story. It's so powerful, especially if it's read well. If someone can look at you and say, I'm sorry, can you? So what you're saying is that you are left by yourself. So how is it that this person came to have access to you, that you would have had this traumatic experience? And so you can begin to see like, oh my gosh, I'm not seeing my story totally clearly.
Mm.
And it's with someone else's face kind of looking at you, because we can't see our own faces. We have a hard time reading our own bodies. And so to have someone to be able to reflect back to you like that's when you tell that story to me, a lot of times, oh, just as a segue,
Yeah.
a lot of times what happens is people will tell very traumatic stories in large groups, like with their friends, and they'll laugh because it's been told to them that it's a funny story. And
Mhm.
someone in the group, their body will testify to the fact that it's not a funny story.
Mhm.
And then they will see that person will be like, that's not funny. Like, that's like assault, you know? And then all of a sudden they're like, whoa, this story has been read and told to me as if it is funny. And someone else is saying it's not funny. And my body actually feels rest because it's now the truth is being told. This isn't a funny story. This is a story about assault, right? And so we need other people. So that's kind of the work that I do is I help people begin to write their stories and then bear witness and um, offer them a different way to potentially look at what they've come to know or what they think they know about themselves, in a way that provides healing for them to be able to say, yeah, that was assault. No, this isn't funny. Right.
Mhm.
And you can just feel how, like, oh, wow, to be able to name what's true for you, what actually was going on, then you're able to actually begin to process what your body has held. Because if you can't name it as assault, you're never going to be able to get to the place where you're like, wow, my body has held that as being
Mhm.
true. No wonder I'm triggered by certain things, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, so that's like narrative informed trauma care, or I call it story work.
Mhm.
So I coach people on that. And then once they kind of get a sense of what their story is, I try to help people move through, like begin to be aware of all the thoughts that they've been offered about themselves that they've taken on as being true, and give them other options to be like, actually, you don't have to believe that.
Mhm.
You can believe whatever it is you want about yourself. Thoughts are just opinions,
Yeah.
right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, like they're just
Thoughts are what we
opinions.
put on ourselves. It's
Yeah.
not even real. They're not real.
Yeah, yeah. But the story is what, and for me at least, the story and understanding your story is what gives people the freedom to begin questioning what has been told to them about themselves.
Yeah.
So anyway, so that's the work that's the work that
Sure.
I do. And that is what has helped me get a better sense of what's true. So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, then what is your narrative informed trauma?
Yeah, so that's a big question. What is my story? Well,
If you want
yeah.
to, okay. I didn't
Yeah,
know if you
yeah,
wanted.
I can offer a little bit. How
Okay.
about that?
Okay.
So I had two experiences of sexual abuse that happened very randomly, seemingly very randomly. And for me, being able to actually write those stories down and to have someone invite me back to that little self. One of them, I was very young and had a random man call my house and tell me things that were really inappropriate. And so I'm kind of telling the story at like 10,000 feet.
Yeah.
But what I would actually do is I wrote the story out in full detail and then I read it. And then other people kind of offer me what they see in that space. And so what I was actually invited to was to sit with my younger self, and to when I first wrote the story, I had so much contempt for her. so much contempt for her. I was holding her accountable for things she was like 5. She just could not have been held accountable for. Right. And so for me, the process has been able to go back and to say, the person who called me was a proficient predator, proficient, excellent at grooming, excellent at seeing, and all predators are, like, they're very good at the grooming process and bringing you in. And then, especially with sexual assault, it's the sense of complicity. Like, where do you feel like it's your fault that it's happened? In every single situation where you have sexual abuse, the predator brings you in to join him so that you feel like you did it. Like, you feel like you could have prevented it, or there's something that you did. And so part of the work around that is to unhook, yourself. And for me to like be unhooked and to go back and say, there's no way she could have known when she answered the phone that that's what the situation was for her. And to name what I was invited to, and to name what that has cost me. And then to kind of begin to put myself back together in those spaces. So that's just like a tiny piece of it. But it allows me to see other people's stories too. Like, I'm always very curious. Anytime someone's labeled like, oh, I was the hard child, I'm like, hard for who? What does that even mean? So, or yeah, I just was in the wrong place at the wrong time. Those are some of the things that people will say, about themselves. And I'm like, someone gave that to you. Like, someone told you that. Right. And so, like, let's explore what actually might be the case, Yeah. So that's a little bit of my story.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that. That's vulnerable of you. So, but I do understand your thinking of this. It's kind of like being outside of yourself and then kind of going 10 years behind, or back to that place, but being outside and looking at it from above, and really looking at it in a different perspective, and kind of coming up with, this is what you were told, or this is what you were in that time, and then what happens from that time on to going forward is what the beliefs and the mental things that happen to you. So when you remove yourself, like you said, when you remove yourself from that thinking, from that belief, and you look at it from a different perspective, that I think is when the healing begins, is because you're not attached to that episode, or to that traumatic event. You're really looking at it to be where it isn't your fault. It isn't to really, you're just there and something happened to you. Now, not playing victim, but also understanding that it's not our responsibility for every single thing. And
well, yeah, too. And like, children, when there's not someone there to help interpret or to process with a child what's happened, and because those kinds of situations are very confusing. What we call it is kind of like, you're left in an interpretive fog. And so children will go to work very quickly interpreting the situation for them, and it's almost never kind. They have to take it on, because to not take it on means they have to name that they were left by themselves to be in that particular situation, or it would require them to be aware of like just profound evil that exists in the world. And children are just not, their heads cannot comprehend that there is on the other line a man at a prison who's called, and his desire is to like, create arousal for a 5-year-old girl, right? Like, that is just, a 5-year-old cannot comprehend that. So, for me, at least particularly, I went about interpreting that as, I shouldn't have picked up the phone. Like, how am I supposed to know? Right. Or, oh, I'm ruined. Like, that was another thing that came to me later, was like, I'm ruined. Oh my gosh. Or like, now I've got all this awareness of my body that a 5-year-old shouldn't have, and it's too mature for my scope of like understanding. So, just to be able to go back and actually attach to her in a way that's kind, right? Attach to her in a way where I can sit in that 5-year-old body and rename for myself what was true, right?
Yeah.
To kind of go back and reparent her, like to give her like, here's really what was true. Here's really what was going on, right?
Yeah.
Um, because then I am not, then I see it as it was, instead of having this narrative that was not as it was. So I don't know if that clarifies even more, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. No, it does. It does. And again, thank you for
Yeah.
sharing and for giving of that all that information.
Yeah.
So we're in May. We're recording this in May, and as you know, May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and self-care is so important for mental health. So my question is, what does self-care mean to you?
Self-care. Yeah. I think it's a multi-level practice of being oriented toward, um, a posture of compassion and kindness toward yourself. And that is in your mind, that's in your physical body, that's in your emotions. And so for me, I practice self-care by being I do a couple of things. So I first I go to work like in my mind to kind of understand, well, what are all the ways in which like how does my mind offer me thoughts, because you wake up in the morning and you've got all these thoughts, right? And a lot of times people, and I've gained some of this awareness. So cognitive behavioral therapy does a lot of thought work. And then I don't know if you know Brooke Castillo, but she has the life coach school. And so she has this thing called the model, and it kind of takes cognitive behavioral therapy and breaks it down in a really manageable way.
Mm.
And so a lot of times people will wake up with feelings and they're like, why am I feeling this way? I just woke up, and it's because we have all these thoughts that go through our head. We're just not even aware of our thoughts. And so part of my practice that I have implemented for myself is that I do a lot of the work through like the self-coaching model that she has offered. And I have a journal where I download all of my thoughts, and then I work through how each of those thoughts make me feel. And so I have this very expansive view on what are my emotions, and emotions are just like vibrations that we feel in our body, right?
Mm.
And so just getting really attuned and aware to what does it feel to feel defeated, right? Okay, like what does it feel like to feel sad? Because that's different, but sometimes they can feel categorically similar. Like, what does it feel like to feel isolated or lonely? And to kind of begin to like let my body get a sense of like, what are those feelings that, are attached to the thought. Like I have one that just is always pervasive. Like, I'm not a good mother. That's one of the ones that, and like, how does that feel in my body? Gosh, well, that feels super like I feel very defeated when I think I'm not a good mother. And that's not a great feeling. And then like from that feeling, I do all kinds of things that I don't really want to do. So I work on that thought to be like, well, that's kind of optional. And so I work to neutralize that by just saying like, I'm a mother,
Yes.
right? Like
Yes.
I'm a mother. That's true. That's a
We don't need
fact.
to add more onto
Yeah.
it. Yes.
Right. And then I can kind of choose like my thought from that. Like I can be open to the possibility that I'm a good mother, or I'm open to the possibility that I'm a mother who's working to understand her children and who's working to love her children well and to repair. And like that feels true to me. And when I think that thought, the feeling I have is like, love and inspiration and pride. And all of those feelings motivate me to continue to work toward being a good mother. So that's one of the practices I do. And I spend probably 30 minutes a day just clearing out my headspace and trying to
Mm.
work on what I think. And then that's the biggest one, because I think from that place, from like our mind, body, like our feelings, that whole space, because our feelings, you can feel it all through your body, right? Like if you feel sadness, it can actually like impact your gut, how your gut
Mhm.
feels. So when you can kind of get those things aligned, then I think everything kind of moves out from there. So then I try to eat well, and my son tells me I need to walk at least 20 minutes a day. We have an Apple Watch and he's always competing with me. He's like, come on, mom, you got to walk 20 minutes a day.
Nice. Nice.
So, I do that. I try to challenge myself to do different things and to challenge my thoughts about why I'm not doing them, or
Mhm.
all with the posture of curiosity and kindness is sort of, those are my practices for myself. So,
Great,
yeah.
great. No, and kind of going back, so you mentioned CBT.
Uh-huh.
And so I have went to, seen a therapist for CBT
Yeah.
for myself because, I have this, I don't want to say perfectionism, but I think it's more of a controlling aspect of my life. I want to control everything. And I think it came out in eating, so eating disorders and stuff like that. So I was like, you know, telling myself that I'm either too fat or I'm too, just like kind of, I'm when my life was going crazy, I was like, okay, I could at least control what I eat,
Yeah.
at least control, something, working out, something like that. So yeah, the CBT definitely helps. I even do it to this day. I don't see a therapist anymore, not yet again.
Yeah.
But yeah, writing down and journaling, like this morning, because like I said, I recently moved and I haven't journaled all week. So this morning I literally took an hour and a half
Yeah.
to write down just everything that was coming up that we were doing, that's just like in general. And yeah, I write down like my CBT, I write down, gratitude and stuff like that. And it does, when you put that pen to paper, it flushes out. It's kind of like a release of, those mental, what's going on in your head 24/7, like again, you were saying, we don't even know it because it's subconscious. We're trying to dig in,
Yes.
and that's the thing, is digging down subconsciously, what's going on underneath, and bringing them to the surface and understanding this is what's driving us. This is what is, um because even though we don't think that we're thinking them, we're really feeling them and thinking them deep down. So bringing them to the surface, bringing them onto paper, and looking at it, looking at the words, and seeing like, oh my God, I say this to myself.
Yeah.
Oh
We
my
punch ourselves in the face. We
yes,
are assaulting ourselves frequently.
yes,
Yeah.
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 So
Yes.
yeah,
Mhm.
no, and so that's why, yeah, that, what you brought to light is, in terms of self-care, I think, it doesn't always have to be, going out for a walk, but I mean, whatever you feel is helping you, yes, but I think a lot of it has to do with getting your thoughts out and getting them to understanding them, at least, understanding. If you can't manage it, just understand it, it's yeah.
Yes. Like, become an observer. Just, it creates a little bit of a space from you, the person, and like you, the person observing what your brain is offering you all the time.
Yeah.
And to note that, I think the kindest thing that I realized is like all of that's optional. Like,
Mhm.
it's not a fact. Like, we think that we're observing something and that makes it a fact,
Right.
but it's not a fact. It's
Yeah.
just an opinion, and it's something our brain it just offers to us.
Right.
And so it's so powerful to be like, my brain is offering me the thought, I'm a bad mother. And I can just look at that and be like, well, thank you so much. I reject that thought. Actually, I'm going to pick a different thought,
Yeah.
Right. And so there's so much power, and it has to be believable. I mean, you can create ladders, thought ladders for yourself. That's a practice. Like, just the thought, I'm open to the possibility that I can be a good mother.
Mhm.
Right. Like, you can just feel like, oh gosh, that feels so kind. And like, that's totally believable. Right.
Yeah.
If you can't get to, I'm a good mother, like, you can get to the place where you can be open to the possibility that I could be a good mother. Right. So that's
Yeah.
like just a nice little bridge. So
Right.
I do that. Like, I do that with myself because I don't want to beat myself up. I don't want to be punching myself in the face. That's not going to produce the kind of results I want. It's not going to allow me to show up in the world the way I want to show up in the world.
Right.
So,
Exactly. And then you're not going to be a better mother for it either.
no.
I think it's going to actually make it worse, because
Yes.
what you think, again, it comes out in certain ways, it comes out, you might not know it, but it comes out in certain ways, in certain actions, in certain, even in certain ways that you speak. You might be thinking in your head, I'm not worthy or something. And then your confidence is like, down. So if we change the narrative in our minds, at least a little bit, at least to shed some happy light or some positive light into it, I think you can definitely change your actions and your beliefs just by changing a little bit of narrative in your head. So
Yes. Oh yeah,
yeah, yeah,
absolutely. Because your thoughts will always prove the results you have.
right.
So if you're having the thought, I'm a terrible mother, you will have the result, I'm a terrible mother. Like,
Yeah,
you just will,
exactly. Yeah.
So, I mean, for me, it was kind of started with neutralizing it. Like I kind of said, I just like, I'm a mother. That's neutral.
Yeah.
Like, that's
Right.
just a
You
fact, right?
can't, yeah,
Yeah.
you can't argue with that.
Yes,
There's no
exactly.
argument with that.
No,
I mean, that is a fact. Yeah.
it's just a fact. Yeah. And so like, you can feel how neutral that is, that it's just the adding of the opinion to that creates the feeling.
Right.
So yeah, that is the best practice I've found for myself to kind of move toward a future orientation, present to future kind of orientation. So
Great.
yeah. Yeah.
Great. So let's shift things a little bit. As I said before, I listened to a few of your songs. And again, beautiful. Love the lyrics. So I'm kind of wondering and curious, how do you come up with your lyrics? Like how do you?
Oh yeah, that's a good question. Well, it kind of just depends. So sometimes it's circumstantial and I'll write a title down. And then sometimes I have turns of phrase that, I think are interesting and I'll just file them away. I've got a voice memo. I take my phone with me and my daughter. I'm like, hold on, wait a second. Okay, right. You can put the title down, and so that's kind of how I do it. And then once I get the frame, like for Beautiful That Way, I was in this season of life. I was in my early 30s and I was being offered the thought that I could look younger than I was. And so that I ought to present younger on my social media than I am. And I just didn't feel like that just did not sit well with me. I did not like that. And because I worked hard to become the person that I am in my 30s, and I am proud of being in my 30s, and I was proud of my children, and I was proud of my husband, I was proud of all of that work and having a home and like all of the things.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to pretend like I was, a single person without children in my 20s, because it's not true. And so that's part of it. And so I had the thought, like, I just don't want to be beautiful that way. And from there, I thought, this is so interesting. I wonder what all the ways are that the world offers us to think of ourselves as beautiful. So I just wrote a couple of them down. And like the first one was, I feel like, not to knock Victoria's Secret, but I feel like that's an option that we're offered as like, what is beauty? And so not to deny that that is beautiful, but that is not like and that's not everything, right? Like there's lots of different ways that a person can be beautiful physically. I mean, that's physical beauty, right? But it's kind of set up as being this thing. And so that was sort of like one thing. And then I think, we spoke about eating, and you've got diet culture and you have body image and kind of probably tags into some of like what is offered as beautiful. And then sort of what we do out of the thought, oh, I need to look like that. Right. So if people are like, this is beauty, and in order to be loved, you need to be beautiful, then the thought you're going to have from that is, I need to look like that. And then what are you going to do? Like, what actions are you going to take to try and look like that? And some of that is like restrictive eating or overeating, or like, trying to do all kinds of different things to your body to contort it and make it look a certain way, because it's been put out that this is what you're supposed to look like. So that was the thing. And then the other option I felt like I was offered is then the denial of your physical beauty. And that is, it doesn't matter what your body looks like, and you should just not think about that. All that matters is your brain and how smart you are.
Mm.
And and I thought, I don't really like that either, because I have a body and I want to think well of my body, and I want to enjoy my body, and I want to like enjoy my hair and my face, and I want to put makeup on, or I don't want to, or like want to get dressed up, and I love color and I love all of this stuff. And like my body matters. I don't like appreciate the Gnostic view of like our bodies. I think our bodies do matter and I like it. You don't have to think that. That's fine. That's just my thought. And so I was like, I just want to push back against that. I want to push back against the idea that it's only how smart or how clever we are, or the bind that you feel between like being beautiful and needing to be smart, or being smart and needing to be like, just how those things are kind of pitted against each other. So that was kind of like how that song came to be, was just thinking through what's offered to us as options for beauty. And then I liked, everyone always says that beauty is in the eye of the beholder, but so much of that is in culture is like the male gaze, right? And so
Mm.
for me, I was like, I get to decide for myself whether I'm beautiful, and I don't need the eye of the beholder to tell me.
Right.
So yeah, so that's kind of that was how that song materialized. Other ones
Yeah.
take a little bit more time, but that one kind of came to me pretty quickly.
Yeah. No, and I completely agree. And I think in my eyes too, I think strength is beauty. I think strength in body and strength in mind. If you have those two, I say you've got it rocking. And it doesn't matter, like, it's up to you, but I think also it's up to you to understand what you are capable of, in terms of how your body, how you could, don't trash your body. um just because you can, or you think, oh well, it's body positivity. I don't, personally, I don't believe in that either, because I think, you're putting your health at risk.
Mhm.
But I also think that just because you're smart, you don't need to not care about your body either. And just because you're beautiful, you should probably work on your, smarts as well, because you're not always going to be beautiful. Beauty, when you get older, things start changing. So you gotta read a few books and learn a few things, and not rely on one thing or the other. So when you're strong in both, and I'm speaking strong in terms of, um, just again, communication, strong in, if you want to lift weights, fine. But if you want to lift your kids, great. It's just understanding who you are as a person, and also understanding that, you know don't look at other people's perceptions or opinions about you, but at the same time also understanding that you do have your own health in mind, and you got to treat it well. You got to treat it like, it's a temple or something. But yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so much of that comes from a sense of wanting to be who you are, wanting to, if you feel about yourself like you're precious, like what you own with yourself is yourself, and that's precious, and like this is yours, and you get to take care of it, and like you get to love it, and you get to be um inspired by yourself and in awe of yourself. And that is not in against being loving and inspiring toward others, but a person who does not like or love themselves cannot like or love other people.
Right.
They
Exactly.
Because if you're filled with self-contempt and you're filled with self-hatred, you will not be able to care well for another person in the truest sense. So it is so important to, really come to a space where you can feel beloved to yourself. And when you feel that way, you will take care of yourself, because you will feel like, I'm beloved. You
Yeah.
want to, like, you can just feel that, like when you're like, I'm beloved, it's like, yeah, I want to take care of me.
Yeah.
I'm worth it. I love you.
Yeah.
I'm gonna take care of you, And then, yeah, then you're going to eat well, and you'll exercise to like what your body needs, and you'll do what you need to do to care for your mind. And like, you'll enjoy playing with your skin, and like, you'll enjoy what your body can do because you'll love yourself. Like, you'll love it, you
Right.
want to play with it. It's fun. So
Right.
yeah, that's how I try to approach myself, even though sometimes I have self-loathing thoughts. Then I have to go and clean those thoughts up. Be like,
Sweep them out.
not today. Not
Right,
today. Yeah.
right, right.
Yeah.
Well, I am really intrigued to hear one of your songs if you're interested in doing one. Would you
Yes,
like
I
to
would
play one?
love to. Yes, thank
Yes.
you. I would love to play a song for you. This song is on the upcoming album, which is available for pre-sale on Bandcamp. And if you go ahead and purchase it, you'll get a free bonus track demo. But
Nice.
this song, I'm going to tune real quick. I'm sorry.
Mhm.
Nothing worse than an out of tune guitar. This song is called Waking Dream, and I wrote this song. I wrote this song this past year when the pandemic hit. My husband's a photographer, and so all of our weddings canceled or were shifted to the next year, and we weren't sure how long this was going to go. And so we took a very conservative approach and just went ahead and sold our house. We just assumed the pandemic was going to stretch on. And even if it didn't stretch on, the economic impact of canceled weddings and postponed weddings was going to be a lot. So we went ahead and sold our house, and we moved in to live with my mom, who lived here. And so this song was kind of about how I synthesized that in my own mind, thinking about how to move forward. So it's called
Beautiful.
Waking Dream.
Beautiful.
Is that coming through okay?
Yes. Yep.
Drape the chairs in white sheets. We bought them for the first home we made on that busy street. 12 years of house keys. They don't work anymore except to unlock doors in my memory. The storm came in without telling us it would. Blew down all the trees, pulled up the roots we thought we'd planted for good. Oh, take my hand, we can't go back to where we were. But if I close my eyes, I can see you standing there in that first house through the screen door, leaning in and whispering to me, I'll see you inside this waking dream. Unmarked boxes fill my mother's house. What's left of us outside of them, we're finding out. Baby on my chest, kid sleeping on the floor. They said if God closed a window, he would open a door. But the storm came in without telling us it would. Blew down all the trees, pulled up the roots we thought we'd planted for good. Oh, take my hand, we can't go back to where we were. But if I close my eyes now, the lines begin to blur, and we're right there at the screen door as we used to be. I'll meet you inside this waking dream. Oh, take my hand, we can't go back to where we were. Take Thank you.
That was beautiful.
Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
yeah. And powerful. I mean, like I said, the lyrics are just so powerful.
Thank
They
you.
hit straight to the heart. So that's beautiful.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I felt like it was true. It's like we can't take much of what we had before with us, but we can take each other. So,
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah.
Well, so speaking of record release, so this is going to be released June 10th, right?
Yes.
So tell my audience a little bit more about this.
Yes, so the upcoming record is called Domystique and it'll be released June 10th, all streaming platforms and all the things. But you can go ahead and pre-order it now. It's available on Bandcamp, and if you purchase the album now, you'll get a free bonus track download. It's called "I Will Fly," and it's a little twist on "Somewhere Over the Rainbow." I was singing "Somewhere Over the Rainbow" to my daughter, and I thought this is not a very empowering song
Mm,
because it's like kind of wishful. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to turn it and it's not going to be wishful. It's going to be, I will fly and I'm going to get over that rainbow and I'm going to be exactly where I want to be. And so are you. And so that's the little twist of the song. And I just did a little demo and wanted to put it on the track very last minute. So you'll get that if you purchase the album now. And you can find me on YouTube. You can find me on Instagram. And I have 3 music videos out from that's for this record. So yeah, so that's
nice.
everything. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. So I'll link everything in the show notes.
Thank
So
you.
my audience can just click on and purchase because I mean, yeah, your music is just amazing.
Thank you. Oh,
I
thank
like
you.
I almost teared up. I'm like, oh my goodness. But no, it's real.
Thank you.
It's just, yeah, it's really, it hits the heart. So beautiful.
I really appreciate it. Thank you
Yeah.
so much for having me on. It's been so
Yeah.
fun to be here with you.
Good, good. So before I have this last question, I do want to acknowledge you. Like you not only are, just a songwriter or just a singer, you are so much more. I mean, you have such a beautiful heart, a beautiful gift to give others, and are using your own story to help others in their story. And that I think is profound and I think inspiring.
Thank you.
So you put it through your music, you put it through your lyrics, and I think I know that people are just going to be inspired when they hear you and see you. So
Well,
thank you
thank you
so
so
much for being
much.
on here.
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate it. Oh,
Yeah. So the last question I have is, can you leave us with one quote or words of wisdom?
I think the biggest thought I would offer people is that you're worthy. You're worthy of care. You're worthy of knowing yourself. You're worthy of the work that it takes to be well. So
Yes. Yeah.
I think that is it. And it is possible. It's possible to come home to yourself. So I think that's my invitation is to do it, to begin the process of coming home to yourself. So
Oh, beautiful.
yeah.
Yes. Well, thank you so much, Laura. It has been a pleasure to have you on. And you know what? We'd love to have you on again. So after this
Oh, thank
album is
you.
released,
Yeah.
we'll definitely connect and would love to have you on again to do a part 2. So
Yeah, thank you. It's been
yeah,
so good to talk with you. I feel such a privilege to be here. Thank you so much for having me. It's so fun.
yes. Well, thank you. So yes, until next time, you are worth it.
Thank you. You too. You too.
Thanks.